on to
what is Iowa's path to victory in this
this
game?
week.
Yes.
The path to victory. That's a great question. So Wisconsin's different, right? But a lot of what they pride themselves on, stopping the run, obviously establishing the run game on offense, is very similar. So schematically, you're going to be able to tell me. I haven't done a deep dive on Wisconsin yet. I'm going to be able to watch. I'm going to go back and watch the first half of Wisconsin records later this week for my preview. But my guess is for Iowa to win this game, they're going to have to generate something by way of an exotic. And if you've noticed where my mindset is or my head right now at this game, I'm guessing people don't feel like I'm being very positive right now. Because frankly, I don't feel very positive about this game on Saturday. I just don't. I remember in 2021, I brought up the Wisconsin-Iowa game and said, hey, I think they need to run an exotic, and it doesn't need to be a trick play, but even a flea flicker is an exotic. We saw 2 Iowa tight ends catch touchdown passes in the NFL this past weekend with a really, the same exact exotic where there was I'm trying to think of the play, but it was do you remember the play, Mark? I can't even picture it. I know it was Kill and Laporta both caught touchdown passes on the same flea flicker play, but it was kind of an unorthodox formation and play. And they both caught touchdowns off of it. And I was just thinking to myself, I remember in 2021 saying that, hey, we're not going to be able to get up there and just say, well, we want to be able to run the ball and we're going to do it unless, even if you know we're going to do it, we're going to do it anyways. That doesn't normally work. Not against Wisconsin, it doesn't work. Now, it works oftentimes against teams like Northwestern and Purdue, and it's worked against Minnesota narrowly. It's worked against Nebraska narrowly. You go down the list, but against teams like Wisconsin and certainly Penn State a few weeks ago, it doesn't work. So I'll go back to what I said in 2021, Mark. It's Kirk and Brian's time to they've been living on borrowed time with this offense for far too long. It's time to pull something out of your hat. Something. Like, just prove that you can be innovative. Prove it. Because I don't know that I believe anymore that they are capable. We saw them put together some impressive offensive performances, and we saw Brian call a good game in 2017 against Ohio State, a good game in 2019 against USC, a good game against Iowa State in 2017. But man, that's been 4 to 6 years ago. I don't think they can get up there and just beat Wisconsin up front and win the line of scrimmage and run the ball to death. I think if they do that, they will be signing their own death wish. So my prediction of what they will do, that's my prediction of what they will do. They'll get up there and run the same offense that we're accustomed to seeing and the same garbage play calling and the same running the ball between the tackles. They might mix in some counters because they've been working more this year than in past seasons, but they're going to have a lot of negative rushing plays. Deacon Hill's going to struggle to make completions, and they're going to probably end up in a low-scoring game in the first half, hoping that the defense can keep them within reaching distance, like the defense did against Penn State a few weeks ago, and hope the floodgates don't open the second half. That's not a recipe for victory in my mind, but that's my guess as to what will happen based on evidence. And Mark, you and I talked about this on your Big Ten show yesterday. We went over. You ought to cut up that segment, by the way. You need to cut up that segment heading into this game on Saturday. We talked about some of the recent quarterback performances for Iowa players in Madison. Go back to 2015 and look at C.J. Beathard's numbers. Go look at Nate Stanley's numbers in 2017. Go look at Spencer Petrus's numbers in 2021. It's unbelievable. 3 of the last 4 times they've went to Madison, Iowa has not had a quarterback go for over 100 yards passing. That's mind-boggling. How often does that happen in general anywhere? Anywhere in the Power 5, how often do you see quarterbacks, Mark, that don't hit 100 yards passing? Like, for every 100 games, how many times does that happen where you have a team that does that or fails to do that?
4 or 5, maybe.
And yet Iowa's done it 3 of the last 4 times they've played Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, let's remind ourselves, Wisconsin's not Ohio State, not Penn State, not Michigan. Wisconsin's been a solid program throughout that stretch, but Iowa's supposed to be a solid program as well. The passing offense has been absolutely non-existent, with the exception being 2019. We talked about this. Iowa had a big 80-yard throw to Tyrone Tracy that almost got them back in that game and got it to overtime if they not missed the 2-point conversion. But with the exception being that play, they've been able to do virtually nothing through the air against Wisconsin on the road.
And correct me if I'm wrong, those 3 other games besides the 24-22 game were borderline blowouts. So they should
No,
have.
not 2015.
Okay.
15 Iowa won.
What was the score of that game? Do you remember? Anyway, they
Like
lost 38-14. They lost like 28-7, or not 28-7. Anyway, my point was going to be that you would think that they would have amassed garbage passing yardage playing catch up in the fourth quarter. You know, when you're down 2 or 3 scores,
one would think, but
you
that
should be able to, yeah.
I mean, I go back to 2017. That might be the most mind-boggling game because that was the week after Iowa put up a ton of yards and points against Ohio State the very next week. And what does Josh Jackson do? He comes back from a hat trick, 3-pick day against the Buckeyes, has 2 pick sixes in Madison.
That's crazy.
And they still get blown out. So that's one of the most unbelievable 2-week stretches in the history of Iowa football for a single player. Like, that's incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And that second game is the aberration to Iowa. It's what an Iowa defensive back does at that elite level, but usually to win the game.
Yeah, to do that have the hat trick against the Ohio State offense, I think is maybe the most impressive part of that. And to follow it up with scoring 2 touchdowns the very next week, in spite of the offense's ineptitude. By the way, I don't know how we could research this, but I would love if we had a stat guy who could just go back and just check anything that we have a question about, Mark. I'd love to know at the end of this season how Iowa's time of possession discrepancy, or even snap discrepancy, first down discrepancy, how that compares with some of the worst numbers of all time. Because I mean, like the game against Penn State, when Penn State snapped the ball like 97 times to like Iowa's 28 or something mind-boggling like that. That was insane. But like you go to Iowa State, they've done that several times this year, just not to that extent. And they have to be setting records. I don't ever recall any single game like we saw against Penn State, or collectively like we've seen from Iowa, not being able to move the ball and get first downs and stay in the field. And the defense has not been like, well, we're just gonna buckle down every time we get the ball back. They give up some ground, and wouldn't you? I mean, if you were an elite defense, wouldn't you at some point give up some ground? We've talked about that, and the waters of the dam just building up pressure.
And Kirk was asked about that today. He was asked about the statistical anomaly of their wins. In my memory of his response was basically, well, we've been doing that for years.
Yeah, he kind of brought it back to the program as a whole, that the program has done that. And I don't think he meant it as any slight against the Hayden Fry era, but Hayden Fry's teams had offense. They scored points, in large part. Not every year, but in large part, those were good offenses because they had good coaches. They had Bill Snyder and Don Patterson, and you go down the list. Carl Jackson at running backs coach. So, but in general, Kirk has not had that, with the exception being 2002, which was what he brought up today. The one year where he was really, what did he say? You watched that press conference? What did he say when he was bringing up 2002?
What was the reference to 2002? Yeah, I don't remember.
Something about how the numbers were kind of reversed in 2002.
Well, you would think that his point would have been the way he stated that, and I do remember the statement, that in light of the topic, you would think that they were statistically dominant in 2002, but they lost games, but they didn't lose games. So I don't know what point he was making.
Well, they did lose. They lost a couple games.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't mean they went undefeated, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like they went 5-7 and were this anomaly of being statistically dominant, even though they went 5-7.
Now, what will you say, Mark, if Deacon Hill goes up to Madison this weekend and just throws for like 300 yards?
That would be.
Can you imagine? Would that be the biggest surprise of your lifetime with just college football in general?
My lifetime? No.
Deacon Hill goes back home and throws for over 300 yards.
Yeah, based on what we've seen the first 2 weeks out of him, plus what the Iowa offense is from week to week, plus what the Wisconsin defense has been. And even though there have been comments in the chat about the Wisconsin defense not being what it typically is,
it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know that we're seeing Washington State was the one team, and the Wisconsin offense helped that cause considerably with Tanner Mordecai had a strip sack in the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So there's 7 points right there.
And
And then
Wazoo's
they
pretty good.
pardon me?
Wazoo is good too.
Yeah, Wazoo's good, and Tanner Mordecai had 2 big fumbles in that game. And Ches Malusi down 2 with about 5 minutes left and Wisconsin driving toward the red zone, fumbled. They could have won that game.
Yeah. So what's your prediction on Saturday? And I know, is that going to be one of our games, one of our media selections?
That media selection deal is falling apart.
Why? Why?
I sent a spreadsheet out last week.
I filled it out.
Oh, did you fill it out?
Of course I did.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll keep it
Absolutely.
going. Yes, of course, that would be one of the 12. Sure.
But neither of these teams are ranked. That's why I asked. Neither of them are ranked.
Yeah,
Are
I
they?
don't
Are
look
either
at
of
the
these teams
rankings.
ranked in your rankings?
No. They're extremely close to being ranked. They're under
Iowa.
consideration.
Iowa's extremely close.
Yes, they are. They are. Yes.
So can we just ask, and we can get to, we're going to talk Noah Shannon here in a second, and we can bring up Caleb Brown. But I want to ask you, Mark, because we're already almost running out of time in the show. If Iowa were to, if you right now, you could foresee the future and you saw that Iowa was in the Big Ten title game against one of the 3 teams, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I don't know if it'd make much of a difference to you, which of those 3, what would be the over-under as of right now?
The over-under or the point spread?
Well, both. The point spread and the over-under.
The point spread would be, it was what, 15.5 at Penn State. So this is a neutral site, but I think because of that showing, I would say they'd be a 17 or 18 point underdog.
I could see it being more.
Yeah, it could be more.
I could see it being in the 20s.
I mentioned yesterday, I dropped your name yesterday because and I clearly stated this is not a knock on Corey, but just this played out this way, and it was kind of funny to witness because I totally got your response last offseason when I told you that I thought Ohio State would be about a 25-point favorite against Iowa, and you were just like, "That's crazy, that's crazy." And I was saying it does appear crazy, but I'm just telling you they will be. And then it was 30.
Was it 30? Was it that big?
30.
Well,
doesn't that seem crazy?
If it was 30 last year outdoors in Columbus, if they play Michigan this year and the offense is what it is right now, it might be closer to 30 in December.